Why, hello there. My name is Mountain, and today I'd like to talk to you about this. And what is this, you might ask? Well, this is the Aer Duffle Pack V3. As the name suggests, this is the third iteration of this duffel-style opening backpack from a company called Aer, which is the San Francisco-based manufacturer of some pretty cool carry equipment, or carry bags and such, divided across travel, active, and kind of work type of product lines. Now, its main claim to fame is that this is just a very functional, very well thought out and executed, robust bag made with some pretty great, straightforward materials that is fairly fashionable within its given aesthetic, that is. And I think it represents what is probably among the best available bags or best available quality at this general consumer level price point. I think it's also very well suited due to its duffel style carry opening for carrying a mixture of bulky, say like gym or other kind of equipment, clothing items, and also kind of more urban EDC stuff via its kind of rear device pockets and internal organizer pockets here. Now, its main weaknesses, or maybe like areas of consideration, would be exactly what I just mentioned, that this is a very good but still consumer level bag. And while it is very excellent for what it is, dedicated carry enthusiasts are going to be looking for more exotic materials or like class leading refinement or really, really innovative construction, etc., might be better served by looking at more niche brands or, kind of enthusiast carry brands. You could think of this as like a better version of Encase or any of those kind of consumer bags that you might be able to buy at a normal store as opposed to like a very dedicated niche carry site. And while this bag is very functional, I think it has a relatively lower kind of capacity to size ratio due to sort of its long, narrow construction and some slightly inefficient construction areas in some parts of the bag. And it is larger and taller than other bags of a similar or even greater capacity here. Now, before we continue, I do want to mention that this particular bag has been sent to me by Aer for review here. I've been reviewing this bag for almost, I would say, almost 2 months at this point. And I have actually purchased a ton of other Aer products, including the previous generation of this bag, which I've owned for several years now, and I will talk a little bit about some of the differences between the V1, which is what this is, and like this V3 here in a minute. But I thought it's very important to kind of mention that Aer won't be able to see this review before it goes up, and they didn't have any influence on the contents of this review either. So with that out of the way, let's talk a little bit about who this bag is for and who it's not for. So in terms of who it's for, so this bag, unsurprisingly, is going to be a great choice for gym rats. It is a duffel bag, and I think that's one of its primary use cases. It has a kind of internal shoe pocket in here, which we'll talk about here. It is great at carrying like bulky gym clothes or equipment and such like that. And if you routinely carry a lot of stuff like that, plus you need to also carry like, kind of your work, laptop equipment, EDC stuff or whatever, then this bag is going to be a great choice for you because it lets you carry both of those in a single package that looks pretty good, like in the office, and looks great and is robust enough for the gym. I think it's also similarly going to be a pretty great choice for people who carry bulky items for much the same reason. Examples of that might be like a small tripod or a compact light stand and just like the right little camera cube or something like that could work fine in here. If you're carrying things like, for example, a big bulky external mechanical keyboard, something like this is a Keychron like that, or maybe like a video editing deck, etc. Like this is going to be a good bag because of, again, like the duffel style opening and just kind of the relatively decent capacity in terms for bulky things in this main compartment here. Now, also like big puffy winter jackets, beanies, stuff like that will also, gloves, etc. will also work well in here. It's probably not a great choice for one bag travelers. Now, you absolutely can do one bag travel with this bag. It's large enough. This is about 21.4 liters. The V1 and the V2, I think, were slightly larger at like 24 liters. But anyway, still it's decent enough that for like a really tightly dialed one bag travel kit or like a one night kind of trip, like you could do it in here. But I just think there are far better bags for a one bag travel scenario because, again, this is relatively like long and skinny, and it doesn't quite make the best use of the capacity for its size, etc. And it's kind of a little bit hard to make effective use of the width of this bag in terms of packing cubes, etc. here. I also don't think this is a great choice for office or EDC use if you're not carrying a bunch of bulky items. And Obviously, you can use it for that, but just because the large, kind of main capacity is dedicated to carrying things like shoes or like, gym clothes or whatever, there are better bags that you're going to be able to have better access and just kind of better storage than just that you would have with this rear organizer panel here, which is what's dedicated for the EDC part of this bag here. So next, let's talk about the exterior of this bag. So as I did mention, it is a relatively long and narrow and quite large bag relatively large looking bag, but it does kind of carry and wear a little bit more like a medium bag, given that it's a little bit narrower here, right? It's long, kind of slightly tapered shape, which it's hard to show on camera, but it kind of tapers down towards the bottom and expands up a little bit more up towards the top. Means that it kind of reminds me in some ways of like a tennis racket bag, tennis racket bag or something like that. I do like the overall simplicity and focus in Aer's approach to this bag. There are no confusing things like external hip belts or stowable, like, shoulder straps like that. It's just a really simple, easy to put on, easy to take off, easy to kind of carry around, duffel style backpack. The build quality is robust and quite good, but it's not exactly class leading. But that is exactly what we're looking for when it comes to Aer, which is like a really great, robust bag at like a fairly like affordable consumer price point here. I don't think you're really going to have a lot of problems with this bag. Like I mentioned, I've owned this previous V1 version of the bag for years, and I've used it, a decent amount, and I've never had any problems with it or any of the other Aer bags that I've owned. In terms of like, I think, again, this is just a 1680D Cordura or 1680D ballistic nylon exterior, a solid, Duraflex hardware, YKK zips or whatever. So it's just generally like going to be a great bag in terms of like, holding up to the gym and still like, being decent enough for like bringing it to the office, etc. Along the same lines, I think that you don't really need to baby this bag, and I certainly don't, and it actually holds up fairly well. Now, the trade-off for that, it is slightly heavier, like obviously these materials, and again, this goes to that sort of consumer price point that I've been talking about. Like these materials are a little bit heavier than like, Dyneema or some of the more exotic materials you'll see like on niche bags, but still, quite good. Now, fashion is in the eye of the beholder, but to my eye, if you like Aer's aesthetic, and this is, if you say, what is Aer's aesthetic? This is exactly Aer's aesthetic, right? Like kind of big, maybe for looks more than function, beefy, waterproof AquaGuard zippers, black, 1680D, Duraflex hardware, kind of, this sort of Aer mesh. Like this is Aer's look, and if you like Aer's look on all black everything, I think this bag might also be available in a kind of a heathered gray colorway. You're gonna love this bag. If this isn't your style, well, this is probably not going to be the right bag for you. But I think as far as like gym duffels or like things that can go from the gym to the workplace, this is not a bad look at all. And finally, I think that the overall exterior of the bag, also in terms of its shaping and such, kind of belies one of its weaknesses that I mentioned, which is I think that this is a fairly inefficient size to capacity ratio. Like there are just far more compact ways of carrying the same amount of capacity as this bag in a smaller overall space. So examples like the GoRuck GR1 26 liter, like a Bellroy work pack, and even like the Aer Gym Duffle, as opposed to like the Duffle Pack, I think are all gonna give you equal, if not superior, capacity in a smaller package. Certainly, like, if you look at the 26 liter GoRuck, like I think it's a much lower profile, even though it is about 5 more liters in terms of capacity, etc. And I think it's just kind of due to the way of the construction that does make it a little bit better for holding, bulkier things, but still overall capacity suffers a bit. So next, let's talk about the exterior pocketing of this bag. I think this bag has a pretty, moderately high degree of external pocketing, and there's quite a few that are accessible here. The first one that catches the eye are these 2 big dual water bottle pockets here. And as a quick point of comparison, if we were to look at the V1, this is the V1 version here, which I've mentioned I've had for years, you're gonna notice like they actually had they did have one external water bottle pocket here on the side that kind of zipped open, and this is a style that Aer used to do, and then kind of zipped shut, and it had like this little bungee to keep your bottle a little bit more secure. And then the other one was actually like this long flat organizer pocket, which was not exactly for water bottles. So they've simplified that a lot in this new V3 version. And they've just got big dual stretchy water bottle pockets. The water bottle pockets are quite deep. I'll show you how deep in a second. And they have like a standard kind of air gusseted approach here, which allows them to expand outward and not intrude on the internal, kind of capacity of the bag. Here's a standard 18-ounce Purist water bottle. It has no problems fitting in there. I found that the actual, there's no rubber or anything inside to provide friction. So it does move around a little bit, but the pocket itself is fairly deep. So I haven't had too many problems with water bottles falling out. It also will hold a fairly, a relatively larger, water bottle. And obviously the larger you go to a certain extent, the more stable it'll be inside of there. And then there are two in here. So if you've got one for your, I don't know, your protein shake and another one for your water bottle, or two, maybe you consume 2 liters of water every time you work out, this will be a great choice for you. For myself personally, I usually will use one external pocket for things that I want to kind of get quick access to. It's like alcohol wipes or cough drops or whatever. I have a bit of a cold right now. And I don't need to worry if I lose it, but it's still decently secure. So I just throw that in here. And I like how the pockets will kind of fold flat because, again, of the gusseting when they're not in use. And then on the other one, I usually leave this one open, and this is where I'll actually carry my water bottle when I'm going to the gym or whatever. You can obviously, fill them both up at the same time, and it pokes out a bit, but it's actually not too bad. Again, it's pretty, svelte, I think, in its overall construction here. The next kind of exterior pocket on the bag are these two kind of pockets on the side. This is the top of the bag. And then this is also a difference from the previous generation. So as I mentioned, looking back at the V1 here, they used to have just one, sorry, it's a little bit confusing. Let me show you the orientation here. This is the V3. This is the V1. This is the top of the bag on both of them. And in the V1, they used to have a single kind of top kind of drop-in pocket with a zipper and a key leash on here, and then nothing on the other side, because the other side had this longer kind of organizer admin panel with a couple of internal stretch pockets inside. So in the V3, which is what we're going to be looking at here, they've done away with that asymmetrical design. So this bag is much more symmetrical, and then they have two, again, at the top of the bag. So I'll flip it around. So now you're looking at the top of the bag, two zipping drop-in pockets. And they're slightly different inside. So this one, which is if you're looking at the bag from here, this is the right-hand side of the bag. I guess when you're wearing it, it's the left-hand side of the bag. If you were to open that up, we just got a key leash, and inside I have my keys, and then there's nothing else inside of there. It's fairly deep, actually, in terms of how far you can put your hand down. It comes down to around, let's see, not to around right there on my hand. Fairly deep. It's fairly flat, but there is some flex on the inside, inside material here, which you can maybe see. If I were to put my hand in here, it does flex in a little bit, so you can fit slightly bulkier items in there. And then the other pocket here is just a simple unadorned, drop-in pocket in there. I have a Bellroy note taker with a pen, and that's really it. And again, it's the same kind of a general depth as I showed on the previous pocket there. It's kind of handy, like I said, like a notebook or something you want frequent access to, but you still want to be a slightly more secure than maybe in this drop-in water bottle pocket. And then the final kind of external access pocket, looking at the top of the bag, is this quick access pocket at the top of the bag, which I love that Aer includes these. This is lined with a slightly soft mesh, so it's going to be good for things like what I carry in there, which is like my phone, this iPhone 11 Pro, and then I've got a couple other quick access pockets, some chapstick, and like a little bit of alcohol to sanitize my hands. You can also put in things like glasses or maybe like your wallet or something like that, and because it does zip up at the top of the bag, it's actually fairly easy to access. You can just kind of swing the bag over your shoulder and zip it up, get in and out of that, or just kind of drop it on the ground, get in and out of that. And then this zipper is very low profile. It's a smaller reversed zipper with a lay flat kind of YKK zipper pull on there. And that's really it for the major external pockets of the bag. As you can see, there's a nice symmetry, two, and then one at the top. And then at the bottom of the bag, there's actually like a shoe pouch, or a shoe pouch pocket, which I'll talk about a little bit separately when I talk about the inside of the bag because of how that kind of works. So next, let me talk about the kind of load carriage situation on this bag here. So we'll start with the handle. So there's actually one handle on the side here, which is very useful because of the way that this bag is sort of oriented, or structured kind of like a duffel, sort of like, a little bit longer and made to carry kind of narrower, made to carry bulkier stuff. Like it's very easy to just kind of pick it up and you kind of like move it back and forth like this. It balances nicely. You do get a bit of like the kind of canting or the leaning here because of kind of the weight over here, and the handle is not quite lined up in the center of mass. But for me, I haven't found that to be a problem. And then you have another kind of handle at the top, which is just your standard kind of top grab carry handle. I find this bag very easy to manipulate in terms of like the way it's shaped and the kind of weight is distributed due to that shaping. The handles themselves are very simple, you know, kind of just slightly padded, which is nice. Big, robust, you know, they stick out a little bit, but it's not too bad or noticeable. They're very comfortable. The padding is very comfortable to kind of hold and manipulate the bag here. But again, like they are, you know, they do a little bit more noticeable than some other bags where like the handles are a little bit more, you know, kind of flush in there. Flipping the bag around to the back, you do see another kind of handle. Well, we'll talk about the straps here in a second. Here, this is supposed to be a luggage pass-through. You see this on a few of their bags, and then like I think like a few other bags, like I think like the Peak Design travel bags might also have this. A few other bags have started to incorporate this. I've used this because this bag does not stand up on its own, which is something that I forgot to mention. Like under most loads, the bag will always flop over onto its front or onto its back. If you do pack it out just right, especially if you don't have shoes in it, it's easier to make it stand up, but you know, generally it's going to be flopping over like this. So I actually find this a little bit useful to just kind of sort of just pick up the bag and manipulate it like this if I only need to move short distances, or if I need to kind of drag it a little bit, which I generally don't do, but because of this kind of material, it's actually not too bad. It doesn't get too dirty. So this is, again, like I mentioned, like a luggage pass-through. I recently reviewed the Moment, you know, the Moment, I think, travel bag or travel wear bag, which had like one of the best luggage pass-throughs I've ever seen on a backpack. This one, I'm not as crazy about this particular feature. I just think it's a little bit, you know, kind of too thin. Not great, but I'm glad it has it. I use this much more as like a carrier or shifting handle. It's right out of the way when you're not using it. In terms of the backpack straps, they're very, very straightforward and simple, but again, quite robust in that kind of consumer level area niche that, you know, Aer really occupies there. So they're thicker. They've got the standard Aer mesh on the back. There's a little bit of like a harder reinforcement here that helps distribute the weight. And there's not too much of an aggressive tapering, some shaping, but not like a super aggressive taper like you might see like on some of the Bellroy bags, etc. I find it quite comfortable. No load lifters or anything like that. The bag doesn't intrude too much or doesn't extend too much beyond the attachment point. And I find like when you put this on and lock it in, because of the kind of like the width of the strap, the padding, and the kind of a little bit of reinforcement, like it's quite stable for the kind of capacity, even with if you're carrying slightly heavier gym equipment of this bag, and I find that quite good. The sternum strap is, you know, very robust. It's very straightforward. I mentioned just a moment ago the Moment travel wear bag that I had reviewed recently. That one had like one of the worst sternum straps in the world. This one has a very straightforward, extremely functional, like robust Duraflex shoulder or sternum strap, which I like. I'm not crazy about this attachment point. I prefer like ladders or toggles. Like this one, I think like when you have it under load, you know, it can kind of pull a little bit like this because there's no like attachment for this thing, but I've never had that actually be a functional problem. I just kind of don't like the aesthetics of it. Beyond that, there are built-in strap keepers here for the straps, which they tend to fall out for me for whatever reason, but I don't mind too much. And then just, you know, overall, you know, just plastic Duraflex hardware, very good stuff, very straightforward, no kind of crazy like strap stowage system or anything like that. They just kind of, you know, hang as they are, and that is fine. The back of the bag itself, there is a fairly relatively stiff back panel when you've got like your laptop and stuff in here, but the back panel itself is actually not that stiff, which is pretty good, but it is fairly thickly padded. You get some kind of sort of quasi air channels here, and these two kind of raised up air mesh products. I think, again, like, you know, I keep saying that this bag represents sort of like the very best at the kind of general consumer price point. I think this Aer mesh is a great example. There are more exotic and maybe like less sweaty or better, longer wearing kind of back padding approaches. But like this Aer mesh is really great. Like it works great for like most everyday use. And I think that, while it's not the fanciest, it actually gets the job done. Especially because if you consider you're kind of coming back from the gym with this bag, one of its intended use cases, you'll be sweating a bit. It's good to have a little bit of the absorbency of those materials as opposed to something like Dyneema or some of like the Evergoods bags, which are probably technically superior, but they don't like absorb sweat, or they just collects on your back there. So next, let's talk about the laptop compartment of this bag here. So flipping it around towards the back, you've got the kind of laptop EDC compartment here. And what I'm going to do is I'll just unzip it. And like a lot of bags these days, you get this sort of asymmetrical opening in that this side of the bag, it's kind of going to be a little hard to show it on camera. Here we go. This side of the bag zips down all the way to here, whereas this side only zips down to here. So you do have an asymmetrical opening. And then it's going to be a little bit hard to see, but if we take the longer, like the wider kind of opening side, you can kind of see this is the back of the bag. This is the inside of the main compartment here. Let's start with the back panel altogether. So first thing you're going to notice, you're going to have like this sort of soft lining. Those of you who've watched my Aer ×9 capsules, travel capsule or capsule pack review, this is the same kind of like padding that Aer used in that bag. It's a little bit different, or it's significantly different, not a little bit. If we look back at like the old V1 or whatever, you can see like they just used like this kind of internal like nylon smooth thing. And there's some other differences in here which I won't get too much into, but this is a little bit less refined of an approach in the V1 than like in the V3, in my personal opinion. Soft, but not, not too like, whatever, it's not like scratchy or anything like that. I have in here a 13-inch MacBook Pro. You could easily fit a 16-inch MacBook Pro in here. It's just quite a large and deep compartment. You can see there's plenty of space still in there. And this, as I mentioned, this back panel is fairly thickly cushioned, so you don't have to worry about that. And there is also a false bottom, like it ends here, so you can drop this. This is a pretty, robustly built bag in terms of like, if you're gonna go to the gym, your laptop and stuff will do all right in there. And I also have in here like an 11-inch iPad Pro with just like the portfolio cover, not the keyboard cover. And that fits nicely inside of this, tablet cover here. And I find that there's enough volume or enough depth in here that I can carry both of these without the bag feeling like overly stuffed or like this compartment's going to burst, which is actually really comfortable. A lot of bags get kind of tight when you're carrying both a tablet and a laptop together. Inside of, now we're looking at the inside, the back of the main panel, we see at the top right away we have this organizer panel, which has like this kind of robust, stretchy mesh. And inside of here, so it has some volume, it runs the full length of width of the bag. Inside of here, I just have like a coin pouch and then like my Bellroy Apex wallet, and I think some AirPod Pros in there. You can obviously fit a lot more because like it does kind of stretch out, and you have enough capacity or enough volume in here, depth in here, that you can fit some more stuff in there. I like that. It kind of keeps it out of the way when you're not using it. At the top, there's this kind of quick, there's no zipper or anything like that, but it's just sort of like a quick drop-in pocket. I have like an additional kind of like some business cards or point cards or whatever, and then like a mask case with some extra masks. I just throw that in here. This is very useful for like if you just want to unzip the top of the bag. This is the top of the bag. You just want to get in and out, really quickly, or drop something in and out very quickly, but still want it more secure than maybe like in the, I don't know, like the externally accessible quick access pocket. Like I think this is a great kind of little drop-in slot for things like that. And then going back here again to the kind of inside organizer panel, you have these two big stretchy pockets here, elastic pockets. Here I have like a Mophie larger USB power bank, power battery that just slots in here. This is one of the larger USB batteries out there. And then in this one, I just have some charging cables, and then I have a mouse. Obviously, like you could drop in like a computer power charger or whatever in place of this larger USB battery bank or whatever. And then there's still some space, like, I mean, there's, space in this main compartment to drop in, maybe something a little bit larger or flatter, like maybe like a book or a thinner binder or something like that. You can also put like business papers or whatever, kind of business papers or folder, something like that in the tablet pocket, or, in this main compartment if you are using like the tablet pocket for a tablet. I do find that while the overall compartment is not tight when it's loaded up, even when you've got like a fairly significant amount of stuff in there, I do find that this asymmetrical opening is a little bit tight to get into. Like I just always find like I have to kind of like pull it back, and I it's a little bit hard, especially to get this on this side that doesn't zip down all the way, like to get this in and out. I'm always kind of like banging on other things in there. It's not the most pleasant experience in the world. I wouldn't say the opening is friction full, but I would say that I find it a little annoying to kind of fight into this corner, and I wish that this would just zip down all the way, even though I do know they have this handle here. It's just a point that I've noticed in my everyday interactions with this bag. So next, let's talk about the main compartment of this bag. And this is really like its sort of main claim to fame. I'll take a moment to talk about the zippers on this bag. They're all kind of, YKK zippers. They've got these nice zipper pulls with like this big, let's see if I can get it to focus on camera, like these big plastic, long zipper pulls. All of the zippers have them, even the smaller ones, except for this lock flat zipper. I find it very easy to pull and manipulate, and like it's very functional, even with gloves on. Even if your hands are cramped after going to the gym or whatever, it's totally fine. But they do dangle a bit, right? Like in terms of like just, got a lot of like stuff just sort of hanging everywhere. Again, if you like Aer's aesthetic and the fact that it's all black everything, it's gonna be okay. But I did kind of find that a little bit noticeable, but not, enough that I thought it was fatal. All of the zippers are YKK. Most of them are kind of reverse coil zippers. Some of them are smaller, but then this big main zipper is this big beefy AquaGuard zipper. And I've mentioned this before, again, like in my Aer 9 hours capsule pack review, that sometimes Aer will use, actually I believe in most of the products, they'll use like these AquaGuard zippers, but they're really for looks because this material itself is not waterproof. So there's not really any point to use like a waterproof zipper here. But anyway, they do have this big waterproof zipper for looks. It is a two-way zipper, although I never really like put it in the middle. I guess like that's part of the duffle aesthetic. But for me, I've always left like one zipped at the top and I just use it like a one-way zipper. Given the kind of linear track and gentle curvature, there's no problems in actually getting in and out of this zipper for me, unlike, for example, that capsule pack review that I had mentioned previously. But I find this quite nice. And then it opens up in this duffel style opening, which is to say just a single opening. It opens like that. This one, though it is very easy to open and close and it feels robust, looks good, I did also find that this opening was a little bit tight. So I mentioned previously, like this back opening is easy to open, but it gets a little tight to get in this corner. This one, easy to open. I wish it opened just a little bit more, which it can't because at the bottom, you've got the shoe pouch, so they can't like run the track all the way down here. So you do get sometimes a little bit narrow, but it's doable. So inside of here, I have some gym clothes in an Aer shoe pouch, but these are actually clothes. Instead of there, I have like some headphones for the gym. And then I have like my standard, this is my Moment Mini tech pouch with a bunch of like little, techie things in there, EDC goods or whatever. And then other than that, I don't have anything in there except the shoes, which I'll talk about here in a second. This main compartment itself has nothing inside of it. You can see, let me show you. This is the top of the bag. This is the bottom of the bag. So in the top of the bag here, you can kind of see, this is where the back organizer panel that I showed you here kind of lays, or kind of intrudes on the back, excuse me. Sorry, no, not the back organizer, the quick access pouch I meant to say, intrudes on the main compartment, but it's fairly like, unnoticeable in everyday life. And then other than that, it's just this big, simple, unadorned, capacity. There's a light padding on the walls. There's a more slightly heavier padding between the back EDC tech compartment and the main compartment. There's no padding exactly on this zipper track, but overall there is a bit of structure to the bag. Even if you don't have anything in it, it'll kind of retain that duffel shape, which I think is nice. But it also kind of helps cushion the interior if you're dropping this at the gym, or if you're carrying a bunch of like heavy equipment, etc. inside of there. It kind of helps provide some of that protection and cushioning. Now, the thing you notice right away is this gigantic intrusion from the shoe pouch. So let's take this moment to talk about the shoe pouch and we'll return to the main compartment. So the shoe pouch is at the bottom of the bag. It's this reverse coiled YKK zipper. You can see right here we have a Hypalon vent accent to kind of let some of your sweat or the smell out. And if you just open it up here, I have a pair of my training shoes here. Nike Netcons. And these are, you know, they're not the largest shoes in the world, but they're training shoes as opposed to like super light running shoes. I think they're a decent size here, maybe like I think a 28 centimeters. I don't know what that is in US sizes. And you can see here, that's where this main, I move this out of the way here so we're not looking at my shoes. You can see that's what this main compartment, this main shoe pouch is. And if we move it out of the way, you can see then in the main compartment, we just have this huge kind of volume where, well, not huge, you have a larger volume. I think that's my point, so it's not huge. This larger, narrower volume where you can throw some fairly bulky things. And like I mentioned, it's padded, so it's got a little bit of protection and stuff in there, but it's not that wide. And it is a little bit tight to get in there. And so even though it is a large central volume, it is not as efficient as like some of those bags I mentioned before, like a 26 liter clamshell GR1 or like the Bellroy like work pack, which just seemingly absorbs anything you could put at it. And so this is not the most efficient way of carrying a lot of stuff. Now the shoe pouch itself, you have two things, which is if you've got it in there, you can just kind of leave it flat and then pack stuff on top of it, no problem. You can also push it out here, and inside of the shoe pouch part itself, there's actually like a flap where you can roll the shoe pouch, you know, excess fabric, I don't know, roll, but kind of push it into there. And then when you zip it up, then the inside of the bag becomes a lot cleaner. I like that they included that. A lot of bags, for example, Mystery Ranch or whatever, if they even bother to include a kind of way of stowing the shoe pouch, it's just really like this, you know, ugly toggle on the inside. So you've got this excess fabric just floating around here. So I like that they had like a cleaner solution for actually like stowing it inside of the pocket, where this thing just basically becomes like a little flat padded area and maximizes the volume you have inside of this relatively narrow and limited space there. For myself, I'm not a big shoe pouch person, but I think that there are people in this, I would much rather pack my shoes and my clothes together. And those of you who've seen like some of my other videos where I'll show my travel layouts, for example, the Heim Planet, monolith day pack, I show like a solution where I have my shoes and my clothes together in one pouch, and I just throw that in the main volume. Other people don't want to do that, and they want to just have their shoes in an external shoe pouch. So obviously that's where, I think the duffle pack, having that built-in shoe pouch does help, although it just takes up a huge amount of space. So you have surprisingly very little space left. Like I said, this is really all I can fit in here is an extra piece of clothing, the gym clothes, which are, just shorts and a shirt. It's not that thick. A pair of headphones, and then like a little tech pouch, and that's really, yeah. Especially if I put like a water bottle or something like that. So despite it being sort of a larger bag, can't fit that much more in there when you have shoes in there. But it is very useful for that kind of overall, gym and work kind of combination aesthetic. And like I said, it's kind of a nice approach to doing both of those things, work and gym, or bulky items and kind of more Seville device EDC, in a package that if you like this aesthetic, I think is going to work great for you. So really, that's kind of it for this bag. And if you're in the market for a bag like this, what are some other bags that you might want to consider? So first and foremost, let's talk about another Aer offering. This is the Aer Gym Duffle, and this is a duffel that is for the gym. And it is a more traditional duffel bag style bag. Some of you who are familiar with, for example, with their travel duffel will recognize the silhouette, a little bit more rectangular. The cool thing with this is like a lot of Aer bags, this is the old V1. I think there's also a V3 of this. It also has a shoe pouch here. It also has a separate kind of like tech organizer panel in the front. It also has, I think a laptop compartment here in the back with a tablet or document area, etc. It also has a slightly larger capacity, although the new V3 might be roughly equivalent to that one, I'm not sure. And then it has like a little bit of extra organization. Here we could pull your clothes or your gym stuff or whatever. And it also has like these water bottle pockets on the side of the bag, which is, I think, a solution you see in a lot of like, duffel bags. You stick your water bottle right in there, and then you can carry the bag around like this and set it down and, kind of take a drink or whatever. It's basically if you don't want the duffel pack style, but you want the duffel bag style, this is going to be kind of a great additional choice. And, I think the idea is you put your clothes Oh, actually, no, not your clothes. I think in the new one, you could put your clothes in and it fills the whole area. In the V1, it's only a half pocket here. But anyway, like it is another great solution in a more traditional silhouette that you might want to consider. Another option that you might want to consider, I've shown this a few times, this is the Black Diamond Street Creek 24. I mention it because it also has some ability to organize things like a tablet or whatever, but it also has this, and sorry, also like a front EDC kind of organizer compartment for your more daily goods, but it also has like this big drop-in bucket style area. It's kind of based off of a rope bag or like a Craig pack where you can drop in a bunch of stuff, bulky stuff, shoes or whatever. There's no dedicated shoe pouch, but you carry both of those, and it's sort of, depending on where you work, probably anywhere you could get away with the gym or with the Duffle Pack V3, you could get away with this. Maybe another approach is a little bit lighter, a little bit simpler, but still kind of covers both of those use cases. And finally, a little bit of a deeper cut. I would not say that this is exactly in the same category as the Duffle Pack V3, but it has sort of some interesting similar design cues that I thought was worth talking about. This is the Ortlieb A-Track CR25. It is a waterproof bag. This is not a bag that gets a lot of like attention or talk about a lot, but it has, you can kind of see that the same long, narrow silhouette as the Duffle Pack V3. It is a waterproof bag, or Ortlieb makes waterproof bags, bicycle panniers, etc. like that. It opens from the rear rather than the front with the same kind of long central zipper. Big single opening, some of these like, organizer pockets sort of floating around on the inside. A very interesting like kind of, strap system. It's basically like this strap system that's been kind of bolted on to what is essentially a dry bag. You do have dual water bottle pockets on the outside, though they're maybe a little bit less functional than the one on there, but they'll get the job done. Some kind of extra places to strap and run things. It's a very strappy, long bag. Honestly, it's not a great bag for like EDC use because there's nowhere to carry your laptop and not a lot of great, like easily accessible external organization at all, really. But it has, like, again, as you can see, like if you like the visual aesthetic of the Duffle Pack V3 with that long, narrow kind of black single opening, duffel style bag, this might be an interesting bag to check out. There's several different sizes, and there's some that are a little bit more outdoor oriented than this one, which is ostensibly the urban oriented bag, but maybe an interesting bag to check out. And so really, that is it. If you have any questions about this bag, go ahead and leave that in the comments below. And if I can answer them, I will. And if you have any bags you would like me to review, leave those in the comments below. And if I own it, I will review it. Thank you very much.